Today we head to Rivertales, Stronger Together, where we're going to talk about this couch co-op game made by Kid Onion Studios. It is a beautiful game. The art style is fantastic. It really pays homage to going back to your roots, that whole co-op aspect of gaming where you're playing with the person next to you and you're really just trying to go off each other's teamwork while you're screaming at each other the whole way. It's a fantastic looking game. I had a blast talking to them, and I can't wait for you to hear the entire interview. So without further ado, it's time to head to Rivertales.
Tell me, so the studio's called Kid Onion Studio, right? Tell me about the team. Tell me about the studio. Where'd the name come from?
So the studio, the studio name Kid Onion, comes from a special dish that we have in our hometown, Catania, in Sicily. And translated in English, the name means little onion. So we wanted to give a name that was something related to our roots, because both me and Gabriele, we were born here in Catania, and we wanted to give this name, like to be related to Little Onions. And then we thought, okay, we need to have a character, because we would like to focus on character animation, even on games. So we thought, okay, a little avatar of a smiling onion that goes around jumping could be fun. So that's where the name comes from. And also we even like to think about all the layers that an onion has. So for example, one layer could be the soundtrack. In the end, making a game work is like making lots of layers work together. And we think that the onion is a really nice concept of layering things.
As a team, this is your first game, so have you guys developed stuff outside of this, or is this kind of like your first collaborative project together?
This is not our first one. We met when we were 6 years old, like me and Gabriele, and we had a chance to work together for personal projects on our spare time.
Okay.
But then our split completely, like, because he started studying physics, I did some animation. And after 10 years, we said, okay, this is the right moment to start working together. So yeah, it's the first time in which we do something official together. We have done other things less official.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. All right. So let's talk about the game itself. Tell me about, so the first thing we want to focus on here is the art style. Tell me about where the inspiration for that came from. And just tell me about kind of the thought process behind creating a game with that specific style.
So first of all, I have always been passionate about big, bold shapes and characterful environments. So when I have started my studying at university, because I studied 3D animation, I was already loving that kind of art style. So it's something that I really feel in my blood, to be honest. It's something that I love doing. And then I have the chance to be an art director for a TV, usually TV series.
Okay.
And they ask for colorful things, but usually you have a client. And the client decides the style. So I have always to make the client happy, and rarely you have the chance to make something that you are very happy, 100% happy of. Usually there is always the art director, the producer that tell you what to do. And this time we said, okay, let's do what we love. We love making this. I grew up with Crash Bandicoot, for example. I don't know if you can see some Crash Bandicoot in the art style, but...
I could definitely, now that you say it, I could definitely see the translation. Yeah, absolutely. The colorful, over-the-top kind of pop-out aspect of it, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is one of the inspiration. Then Pyro, also Rayman. I loved Rayman, even the first one. When I started playing my PS1, my first PS1, I was playing the first Rayman, the 2D one. And if you see, the vegetation is really gonna be inspired by those 90 games.
And that actually segued into the other question, because I really wanted to touch on the level design and the actual, the environment itself. And just because an art style really dictates kind of how the world kind of comes up around your character. So how much when you picked that art style, did that really impact, I don't know if it impacted the co-op decision at all, but did it impact kind of how the world looked when you started creating the game?
We try to make it as bouncier as possible. I don't know if that's even a word, but like we try to merge the bouncy and round kind of art style
Yeah.
with the bouncy kind of mechanics. For example, if you see the frogs, they are very, very squashy and bouncy, and then you make them jump, like they're gonna bounce around. So that's how art and mechanics are gonna inform each other. It's very hard to say which one is the direction, because sometimes it's the art informing the game style, other times is the opposite way around.
The two main characters, they're Furple the cat and Finn the fish, right? So tell me about where they came from. I guess even the names, if they have a backstory to them. Kind of where did their style come from exactly, and the whole concept of having those two specific kinds of characters.
The first idea comes with the idea of the game. We want to make a game that is different, a kind of game that we want to play. And this is definitely a couch game, because often happens, at least me and Francesco, to start looking a game to play together, and we have really poor choices. So we want to do something like this, and we want also to do something set in the nature. And the first idea was a river, so it's where Finn the fish come from. And since we want to do a couch cop, we decided to put another character that is the opposite and also often an enemy of the fish, to make the couple more interesting. So Furple came up.
Okay. And that really kind of lends into the whole co-op aspect. That's really where that idea came from, is you really wanted to create a game where you kind of could play together and play off each other?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have played lots of co-op games together, and we realized that there are some really good games out there, but the options are not so many. After you play like maybe 30 or 40 games, then we struggle to find games. So that's why we said, okay, let's make one.
Tell me about the different abilities that the characters have. So a lot of different co-op games, the different characters, their abilities kind of complement their partner in a way, so you can kind of work together as a team and play through each level. So how does that play into this game?
The main thing is the elements of the two characters, because one of the two characters just stays in the water while the others can. So the element on one character is the enemy of the other character. And that already gave us a lot of ideas of how to proceed with the game mechanics. In terms of skills, we don't want to focus too much on the skill itself, so we're not going to have many skills of each character, because what we want to focus on is the communication between the two players, and we don't want to have too many buttons to play. We want that the two players, when they are playing on the couch, they are just trying to, for example, timing direction perfectly. And the actions are actually quite simple, but the timing and the communication and the order of those actions are the main focus of the game.
And then, so the next question that came to mind with co-op games, a lot of people, well, I don't know if a lot, but one of the more main aspects in large-scale co-op games is they have, you can fill your lobby, whether it's with an AI or whether it's with multiplayer fill-ins. Is that something you guys have considered? Is that something that's in the game? Or is that just something that's kind of, you haven't thought of it at this point and it may come into play later?
So, by the nature of the project, since we want the two players play on the same couch, we actually don't think a lot about multiplayer and all for example, AI. We want people play together, so the AI is not something we are going to have in the game, for example.
Okay. So you more...
If you realize that the players really want multiplayer, is something that we can consider.
Mm.
But one of the main problems is that we are focusing on communication.
Yeah.
And for example, something like Overcooked, which is great played together.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to an online collaboration, for example, on Nintendo Switch, you have just some emoji to communicate. And sometimes we think that's not enough, and you need to talk to the person, like to really be able to enjoy the game at its fullest. So it will need some beta tests for sure, and if players really want some multiplayer, we can start considering it.
But speaking of just kind of the overall co-op aspect that kind of leans into the story itself, can you guys, obviously without going too much into spoilers or anything of that nature, kind of tell me about the story behind the game itself?
So the story is really simple. All starts with in the top of a mountain, and Furple
falls off the mountain.
exactly.
Basically. So there is a waterfall and he cannot swim, so he's in danger, and he basically falls from a waterfall.
And then he met Finn, and they start working together to come back to the top of the mountain.
Finn is the kind of character who just finds himself there, and he would like to mind his own business. Like he doesn't want to be stronger together, but he has to. At some point, he starts to like that purple cat.
Okay. So how does the gameplay itself, and just kind of how does the gameplay evolve as the story goes on? So from beginning to end, how does that kind of dynamic change between you? Obviously, I know the game would probably get harder, but kind of outside of that, from a more technical standpoint, how does this everything kind of evolve over time?
We focus a lot on variety. So every level will have different mechanics. You will see different places, face different enemies, and interact always in way that are new. So always new challenge. That's the whole point of the game.
One other question that came to mind when I was kind of doing research on the game itself, it looked like it was kind of more focused on the co-op and the teamwork and puzzle solving in the level itself, and then at the very end of each level, from what I gathered, you face a boss. So can you kind of touch on the different bosses you're going to face, and just kind of how that co-op gameplay lends into defeating these bosses?
Yeah, sure. So as Gabriele said, like every level has got its own core mechanics. For example, on the first level, you slowly start to learn how the lily pads work and how the frogs work, and then you understand that there is a little radish, and when you pull it, you can throw it on the face of other frogs and kill them together.
Okay.
So you start experimenting with the environment, and then at some point, like, you arrive to the boss. The boss is a huge frog, and the huge frog is sleeping, and Furple wakes her up. She is mad at him and starts chasing him. So what happens is that's a really climax point in which you are escaping from this frog, and you have to learn how to use all the mechanics of the lily pads and the radishes and the frogs that you have learned in the level previously, but they are not always exactly like you have learned those. Like, they are a funky twist of what you have learned before. So you can understand what you need to do, but you need to understand how to do it together. So for example, instead of having small lily pads, which you learn how to deal with during the level, during the bosses you have huge lily pads, and they behave quite similar to the small one, but in a different way, in a slightly different way. And you have to communicate with the partner and say, okay, we have learned this in the level. How do we use, in a fast-paced environment, what we have learned together? So what we are aiming is two players screaming at each other with a huge frog chasing them, and they have to understand and say, try to do that, try to launch that radish to the face, and they start panicking. And we have tried a prototype, and we have asked 10 friends, 10 couples really, to play. And the best moment is when they start screaming at each other because something is happening, and they have to think fast. But they have to think fast and communicate fast. And when that happens, we just look at each other and say, "Yeah, that's what we want." And so that's how bosses are gonna work.
I would assume, given that you guys, it's a 3D platformer, there's probably not any open world or semi-open world segments of it. However, is that something that does make an appearance at any point, or is it just focused on kind of the linear story that takes you through the level to your boss fight?
So we are actually trying different level design to understand what is suit the best with the game. We start at the beginning with linear, and as Francesco said, Crash was one of the first of the main inspiration for the game. So we start with linear, but now we are trying to open a little bit, maybe twisting between some linear area and the other more of a bit of the world.
Okay. And then, so obviously you guys are kind of, you're not finished yet with the game. You're still doing development on it. However, is there any idea or any kind of estimate of how long you think just an average playthrough would be?
This is a very, very hard question to
Yeah.
We are thinking, okay, one of the main things that we want to do is making a game that we are able to finish. Because lately, I've realized, like, since I started working like 8 years ago, I realized that games are getting too long, and that really doesn't help me with the mindfulness, because I realized that I rarely manage. For example, I bought the last Crash Bandicoot. It's about time, and I'm loving it. But the amount of things to do are too much, and I never managed to finish it, and that makes me a bit unsatisfied at the end. It's something that I love a lot of things to do, but then I feel like I've never completed it really. I've never seen anything that is in a game, and that makes me a bit, I don't know, like we would like to focus on a game that you can finish, like with your partner in 2 or 3 evenings.
Yeah.
So we are aiming to right now a time span of 5 hours more or less, without secondary question or secrets. So if you wanna rush through the game, probably you can finish it in 4 or 5 hours. If you wanna replay the levels and find all the little birds, because we are making like a little collectibles that are rainbow birds around the game, and they are hidden, and you need to know how to read the level and the fauna and all the animals. Like me to just look and solve a couple of puzzles to find all the birds.
Okay.
So if you want to do that, the game length, the game time is gonna be much longer, of course.
As this is your first project together as a team, what was some of the biggest learning curves or obstacles when you were putting the game together itself? Whether it was coding it, whether it was building the development or the design, whatever it was, just kind of what struck you as, wow, this is much more intense or in depth than I expected it to be?
Since it's our first project in this industry, we found a lot of stuff that we didn't plan. So we are working on Unity, and I never tried Unity before, so I have to learn all the game engine works. I've got some coding experience before, but I never create a complex system like a video game where you have to a lot of things that have to work together. Also with other people. For example, with the animator, we have to talk a lot, and for example, I don't know nothing about animation, at least before we start to play the game, and I learn a lot of what he's doing, and he learned a lot of what I'm doing. So it's always a discovering of new obstacle and way to overcome them.
Well, actually, a question that comes to mind is why Unity? I know that's got a lot of layers to that question, or maybe it was just kind of the first engine you guys thought of as viable. But was there something that led you to that, or it was just kind of the first one you kind of knew or understood?
We choose Unity because the cartoonish style that we want to achieve
Hmm.
are better, works better on Unity.
Yeah.
So we want to achieve the same look on Unreal will be a lot more complex for us. On Unity we found a lot of asset on the store and shaders and make all the whole things easier for us.
Since you guys are a team, and this one fascinates me because a lot of my channel stuff is duo content, so it's kind of playing with that dynamic of more than one person, and more than one ego even in the room. So tell me about how does it work when you're a team developing a game together as opposed to just one of you developing a game? How does that come into play, if at all?
Actually, it goes very smooth because I think each of us has got a strength, and also all the freelancer we are talking with, or people who are part of the team, we trust them completely. So I think the main problems comes to recruiting, because when you want to recruit someone, you need to be sure that it's the right person. But if you pick the right person and you trust that person, like there is never, like everybody's just doing his own job at his best, and you know that the other person in another field is doing the best job possible, and the team goes on quite smoothly, I think. So I think just giving different responsibilities and trying not to have any crossovers is the best thing for a team to be healthy and go on together.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. And then I guess one last question. Your guys' team, this is your first game. Do you guys, so obviously you created a studio, you have plans to create other games in the future, or is that something you're not focused on at this point?
The project that we have in mind is a long project. It's not just about River Tales. Like River Tales is our first game.
Yeah.
Our goal and our dream will be making new games after River Tales. What we love is creating IPs, original IPs, and then building on top. So, for example, with River Tales, if the players love it, or they like it, or they want something more, we would like to expand the universe, and make it even bigger, making some spin-off with the two main characters, or maybe with the same concept as Stronger Together, we can make a spin-off with two different characters or two different enemies.
Okay.
Of course, this is in the future, so it's very hard to tell, and it depends on a lot of elements, as you can imagine.
Just kind of, what is your favorite part between the two of you? What pops out as kind of something you really love when you're creating this game, whether it's level or a boss or just the environment itself, or what kind of comes to mind as something that really you can't get enough of it in the game?
The thing that I love the most about River Tales is the river itself. I think that exploring it is something, even when we prototype a level and we make a cave and then we make some nature, and you feel that you are in the river and you are exploring a really wild environment. I think this is what I love the most about it, is being like, there is no human, how do you say, there is no human civilization in the game. It's like a side universe in which only strange animals are, and this is what I love the most. For example, there is one of the levels we are planning in which we are in a cave, like the characters are in a cave, and everything. We would like to do something very immersive with mushrooms and with some fish that follows you and they emit light. and it's very dreamy and magical. And when you explore it, I think that's the core of the game. Is exploring together a very wild environment with the friend of yours, and trying to get all the secrets. I think that's what I love the most about it.
For me, one thing that I really love in this game is playing as Finn. I love to be the fish and run around the river. It looks a bit silly, but for me, it's a lot of fun.
Perfect. Okay. And then, so you guys have a roadmap moving forward with the game. I believe your Kickstarter launches in November. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. We are aiming first or second week of November, depending on the campaign when it's ready. But yeah, it will be November.
With that in mind, do you guys have a set launch date, or is that something that's in flux at this point?
No, not yet. It's not ready yet. We think 1 year from now, this is what we have in our schedule. But then depends also on porting, because one of the Kickstarter information that we're gonna gather is how many people would like to play it on console or on PC. So that's going to inform our schedule. So we are really happy to see what the audience thinks and what they would love to play. For example, we think that Switch is one of the best way of playing it, because like you have 2 controllers. Switch is very pop friendly, so this is one of our main goals. But maybe, I don't know, people are gonna ask us more about Xbox, for example.
And your game's already controller compatible, correct?
Yes.
So that really lends itself to just swapping over to console easily. So that's definitely something that, you know, would be very viable for you guys. So outside of that, I suppose, do you guys have it? You'd already touched on, you thought about, you know, expanding the universe itself. Have you, again, the game is early in development, but have you ever thought about DLC post-launch, or is that something that right now is just not in the cards at this point?
About DLC, we definitely would love to do DLC or other content, but also everything depends from the public response.
Gotcha.
But we had a couple of chats about DLC and how to expand one experience of the game and make it broader for a new chapter, for example. But yeah, let's see.
Everything about Kid Onion Studios is down below, all their social media pages. Everything you need to know is down there. Make sure you head over there, check out all their stuff, show them all the love in the world. Really make sure you give them some support, because they are an indie developer with a whole bunch of talent, and I can't wait to see River Tales when it is finished later down the road. But for me, it's time to go. Nick is heading away. I'm running off. But until next time, make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe, make sure you're here for the next journey we take together, because without you, it's just not the same. So, I will see you all next time, and stay gaming.